Okay.
Dear friends, dear colleagues, welcome to our seminar. So it is my great pleasure to introduce our speaker today, who is Sylvain Sorin from Sorbonne University, Paris 6. This is in the good spirit of our seminar. So the speaker today is an expert in optimization, but also in games theory. But with a very, he's a member of the strong school in optimization, games theory, dynamics. He is one of the most prominent researchers in these areas, and so working in between these fields or connecting these fields. He was and is a member of editorial board of prestigious journals, and his presentation, his talk today will be on a topic like joining all these subjects: game theory, optimization, learning. So thank you for accepting our invitation, Sylvain. 45-50 minutes for a talk.
Okay, many thanks, Radu, for the invitation. So this topic will be, purpose of this talk will be to underline links between no-regret algorithms that are used in learning in game theory and convex optimization. Okay. And in particular, we'll study continuous and discrete time version and the connection, and we'll discuss advances on the Euclidean and non-Euclidean approaches, speed of convergence of the evaluation, and convergence of the trajectories. Okay, so let us start with by definition and introduction of no-regret dynamics. And so the story is as follows. You have a norm space V. I will assume it's finite dimensional. I will discuss few Hilbert cases. And the dual will be V star. Duality map will be denoted by this bracket. I don't assume V with Euclidean structure. Okay, and X is a compact convex subset of V. I use compactness because in game theory, this is a basic requirement to have equilibrium. So the aim is to study property of algorithms that associate to a trajectory of observation that I will denote by U, that are in the dual space, a process of choices that are in the primal space where xt depend on the past xs us for s strictly less than t. Okay? And then the evaluation of the education of the choices to the observation is given by what is called regret function. And the regret is evaluated at each point in x, and at y, it's the integral from 0 to t of the scalar of the evaluation us y minus x. Okay, so this is the regret at time t against y, and discrete time you have the same expression. Okay, and we will consider basically algorithm that will satisfy this no regret property, that RT of y is a small O of t. Okay, so it's sublinear. Okay? Namely, the average time regret, okay, is asymptotically vanishing, less than 0. We will compare the performance of the algorithm in three cases. First, a general case where there is no assumption on the dual process of observation. It's just bounded measurable in the dual. A closed form will be when it's generated by a continuous vector field. So it's a function of what you choose, okay? And the convex gradient will be the specific case where what you observe is minus the gradient of a convex function. Okay. We will introduce three different procedures, what's called projected dynamics, mirror descent, and dual averaging. And we will analyze the relation between continuous and discrete time processes, okay? In particular, in the speed of convergence of the regret to 0, the average regret to 0, and we'll consider also the trajectories in case 2 and 3. Okay, so the first framework corresponds to the usual model of online learning. We observe a process and then you choose xt, okay? And there is no hypothesis on the process, so it's not Bayesian learning. You don't have any a priori probability and no posterior and so on, okay? So the no regret condition expresses a posteriori nice property. It appears in the work in game theory, basically, in the work of Anand in 57, and then it was studied by Blackwell. And algorithm and property were studied by a lot of people in game theory, including Foster Vora and all these people. Okay, so since it's a quite general talk, I did put a lot of references, and there is a large bibliography of references. And since the slide will be available, you will look at it. Okay, so I go quickly on this, and in particular, there were a few books speaking about learning and no regret in games. Okay, Fudenberg and Levine, Jung, Cesar Bianchi, Lugosi, Art Mascolet. There is a nice survey which also describes the relation between with approachability and consistency. Similar tools and property were also used, appeared in statistics or in learning communities, starting with Vogt, Cover, Littlestone and Vermouth, and so on, Freud and Shapire, and all these people. Okay. And the next two frameworks describe more specific cases where the observation is a function of the action. Okay, so this is in particular relevant for game dynamics and variational inequalities. So I try to be a little bit more precise. We consider a game, gamma of phi, with a finite set of players, capital I, where the equilibrium set is given by the solution of variational inequalities. Okay, where the function phi appears here. So for each player, X is a joint profile, and you want this to be positive. So Xi, capital Xi, is the strategy set of player I, capital X is the product, and phi I is, so from X to the dual of Vi, is the evaluation function of player I. So depending on the framework, the evaluation function has different form. For example, for finite game, the evaluation function is just the vector payoff. In continuous game with concave and C1 payoff, it's a gradient with respect to the variable Xi. In population game, if you look at wardrobe equilibria, the phi I corresponds to the outcome function. So for each player I, the reference process, the observation, will be phi I of xt, which is a function of xt, namely of the move of all players. Okay, it's determined by the behavior of all players. So the overall global dynamics is generated by a family of unilateral procedure. For each I, xi depends only on his own observation. And you look at what is the outcome, the global outcome. So for each player individually, the situation is like the first one, where you observe a process and you take a decision. But the fact is that the decision is the same for all the players. And we'll see, we will look at what are the consequences in terms of the process. Obviously, if for each player the algorithm satisfies the no-regret condition, then the overall algorithm will also, okay, because if it's true for each I, this is true when you take the summation. But what is important is that phi, which is defined on the product set, is the process is decentralized, namely on each component, it depends only on the value of this component. And the last framework covers the case of convex optimization, where basically you have the following stuff. You choose xt, and then you observe the gradient of an unknown convex function. And in our framework, ut will be minus the gradient, because in game theory, usually we maximize. So this is why you have this minus. Okay. So the research here starts like 15 or yes, 10, 15 years ago. It links basic optimization algorithm to online procedures. Okay. And recent books and lecture notes include this: Babek, Hazan, Rachlin, Shalev Schwartz, and so on. So here the literature is very, very important. Okay, and a lot of new results. Okay. So what I want to do here, and also related algorithms have been also developed in operation research. Concerning transportation or networks, okay? So you see here Dupuis, Nagernay, Zhang, Smith, okay? And in particular, each community has its own terminology and point of view, so it's very frequent that you have the same algorithm with different names, same result with different terminology, okay? So one of the aim of the current talk is to clarify the relation and to unify the analysis. And in fact, we'll see that there are very few basic principles that are used, and there is a lot of analogy between the continuous and discrete time processes. If there is any question, please stop me, okay, or leave me a message. So this is expository. Section 2 will be devoted to the closed form. So namely, the observation is a function of what you are doing. Okay, it's basically in a game. First, you choose an action, and then you see the result of the action of all players. And we'll see the link between the no-regret criteria, variational inequalities, and convex optimization. Then section 3 will be continuous time dynamics, where I will introduce the algorithm. Okay. And section 4 will be the analog of section 3, but for the discrete case. 5 will be more related to the regular case of convex analysis, where we have some assumption on the gradient on the convex function. And then I will conclude. Okay, basic property of the closed form. So here we describe some relation with variational inequality, where the observation of the process has the closed form, u equals phi of x. So I introduce few notation, okay, starting with the phi, okay, which is a vector field. So it goes from the primal space to the dual space, okay, and E of phi is the set of solutions. So I would call internal solution because you have x twice, okay. You are looking at the set of x satisfying, and you have x in phi and x here, okay. So it satisfies the following inequality for every y in x. So in an Hilbertian framework, the solution of this are simply given by the point x, such that the projection of x plus phi of x is x. Okay, you just write the inequality of the projection, and it gives you this inequality. And since rather than phi, you could put t of phi and let t goes to 0, you have also this characterization, namely, it's a set of x such that the projection of phi of x on the tangent space of the space capital X at the point little x is 0. Okay, all these are equivalent, and we'll see this property or this property appearing in the algorithm. So I rewrite the inequality. Okay, if phi is the evaluation function of a game, any of phi is simply the set of Nash equilibria, so Nash equilibria of phi. Okay, and if you have a convex function, C1 convex function on X, then the minima of this function correspond to the solution of this inequality, where phi is minus the gradient. Okay, you write that the function is minimal in X, and you get this inequality. When you work so in this framework, we have two properties. So phi is a gradient, and phi is dissipative because it's minus the gradient of a convex function. So the gradient will be monotonic, and minus the gradient is dissipative. So I will introduce the general, the analogous property for general vector fields, and these are the following definition. So a vector field is dissipative if you have this inequality. Okay, so it's the opposite of monotone, if you want. Okay. And the game is dissipative if the phi that appears in the expression of Nash equilibria of the game is dissipative. And this was introduced for games, for C1 games in Rosen, in Econometrica. And Overware and Sundholm use this for population game. They call it stable, and then Sundholm call it contractive. But with Cheng Van, we call it dissipative. Okay, so when you have a dissipative, there is a nice variational inequality that appears, which is SE. SE is external, so it's the same stuff, except that I don't have here x, but y. Okay, so it's phi of y, y minus x. The previous was phi of x, y minus x. So it's still the set of x satisfying this for all y. Now this set is convex. Okay, and then you have this true property. So if the if the vector field is dissipative, the set NE of phi is included in the set SE of phi, which is itself non-empty. This is due to min t. And if the vector field is continuous, then the set SE is included in NE, and this set is non-empty. This is a consequence of the property I showed. You know, it's the fixed point of a continuous map on a compact convex set. When both are equal, I will also use the notation E for this. Okay. So a fundamental example of a dissipative set is the following. You have a function f, which is defined on the products x1 cross x2. It's C1. It's concave in x1, convex in x2. Then the vector field given by the gradient with respect to x1 minus the gradient with respect to x2 is dissipative. This is due to Rockefeller. And the solution of the variational inequality that are the same because it's at the same time dissipative and continuous. Okay, so the solution of the variational inequality are the same, and these are the optimal strategy of the associated zero-sum game. Now, the second property, when you look at the gradient of a convex function, it's a gradient. So I define the potential, and I will say that W is a potential for the vector field phi if basically the gradient, I mean the gradient with respect to xi of W is equal to phi I. It doesn't have to be equal. It has to be proportional with respect to something which is strictly positive. So mu I is positive. And this has to be true only on the tangent space. So this is why I put just that it's equal when you look at the scalar product. So a game having this property is called the potential game. And this was introduced for games by Monderer and Shapley and by Sandholm for population games. Okay, but this I introduced here for a vector field. And then you have the following result, which is quite classical, namely that if you have a vector field with potential, every local maximum of the potential is a solution of any of phi. And if the potential is concave, then any element in any of phi is a global maximum. These are quite standard results. Okay, now let's go to dynamics. So I assume that the procedure satisfies the no-regret property. Okay, it means that RT is a little O of t, where RT is, you remember, the integral of, so I am in the closed form. So what you observe at time S is phi of xs. Usually in game, you don't know phi, you just know your own component. And in convex optimization, you don't know the function. Okay, you will just observe the gradient at the point you were choosing. And you evaluate this against y minus xs. So the first property is that if the trajectory, if phi is continuous and the trajectory converge to a point and the point is in any of phi. And it's just because if x converge to, if xs converge to x, phi being continuous, this will converge to phi of x, this will converge to x. So the average will converge to this scalar product. And since it's sublinear, the left-hand part will go to 0. So you get this property. So in particular, this implies that stationary points stationary point of the procedure are in any of phi. The second result concerns time average trajectory. So I define x bar of t and x bar of n to be the time average trajectory in continuous time in discrete time. And then the lemma says that if the vector field is dissipative, the accumulation points are in SE of phi. Okay. So remember, I'm in a compact space. Okay, there is no point there, accumulation point. And the proof is as follows. I write the average regret, which is exactly this, and then I use the fact that it's dissipative. So here you see that I have the scalar product where xs appear on both sides, and using the dissipative property, I can linearize here. Xs appears only on one side. Okay, so it's linear. I can replace. I get the average here, and I get this property. So when using dissipative properties, okay, it's a geometric property, but it allows to linearize the constraint. This is the main point. And then you get the point that all accumulation points will satisfy this inequality. And so there are in SE. So in particular, in the compact case, you remember X is compact. This implies that since there are accumulation points, SE of phi is non-empty. So this proves that the non-emptiness of this set, and in particular, this is a proof of the min-max theorem, as a consequence of the existence of no regret procedure. And this has been proved in a lot of papers, okay, with different proofs, but it's basically a consequence of this. If you have a no regret procedure, then you know that SE of phi is non-empty for dissipative closed field. And if you go now to the case of a convex analysis, then U is minus the gradient. Okay, so it's specifically dissipative and continuous. Then the set SE, which is also that NE of phi, is just the argmin of the function f on the compact set X. The basic convex inequality implies that the integral of this is smaller than this. Remember that U is minus the gradient, so you get here the regret. Dividing by t and using Jensen implies this. F of x bar t minus f of y is smaller than this. The right-hand side goes to 0. So f of x bar t is smaller than f of y for every y. So it's the minimum. And you get this. The accumulation point of the average are in the argmin of the function f. And if, moreover, f is decreasing on the trajectory, then the accumulation point of the trajectory, not of the average, are in the argmin. Okay. So let's go to continuous time. So here I describe the three procedures that I will use in continuous time that will satisfy the no-regret property. And the discrete time analogous will be in the next session. So usually the dynamics are easier to describe in discrete time, but the property are easier to show in continuous time. So this is why I start with continuous time. And I will first introduce something called level function that will be very useful in the analysis. So I will say that P is a level function for the process ut xt. So ut is the observation, xt is the procedure. If you have that at each point, ut xt minus y is greater than this, that the derivative of pt of. Okay. So if you have a function that satisfies this, I would say that there exists a level function. And the consequence is very simple. First, if you have a level function, then the regret is bounded. Because when you integrate, you get the integral of this. So it's p of 0 minus p of y, p of t. Okay, and the function is positive. So this is smaller than p of 0 of y. So it's bounded. So in particular, if you have a level function, you have a no-regret property where the rate of convergence of the average regret to 0 is 1 over t. Moreover, if y star is in SE of y, this is negative. So you have p of t of y star is decreasing. Okay? And this will be the basis of property analogous to what we have in Oppia's lemma or Fégère sequences. But the role will be played by this level function. And if, in addition, you have a descent procedure, there are plenty of other Lyapunov functions. This is one. Yeah. Some property related to the potential function. If you have a dynamics, we say that f decrease on trajectory if d of dt of f of t, which is the scalar product of the evaluation of the gradient against x dot, is negative. The analogous for a vector field, remember that phi is minus the gradient of f, will be this. And in the framework of games, this was introduced by, by Swinkels under the name myopic adjustment dynamics. And the story was as follows. If one player is changing his move, it means that assuming that the other are not changing, you increase your payoff. So if player I doesn't have the same behavior at stage n and stage n plus 1, it has to be the case that his payoff is increasing. Okay, this is called myopic adjustment dynamics. So in continuous time, this was defined as positive correlation. So correlation is between the dynamics and the vector field. And so the definition by Sandholm is this: if the time derivative is not 0, then the scalar product is positive. So the use is very important in potential field because what you have is if you have a vector field with potential capital phi, and if the dynamics satisfy positive correlation, then capital phi is a strict Lyapunov function, and all omega limit points are rest point of the dynamics. And the proof is, as usual, you just look at the evaluation of your potential on the trajectory, and you take the time derivative. So v dot t is the gradient against x dot, and the gradient is, so you decompose here, And you know that for each I, the gradient of phi is proportional to phi I. Okay? And this is strictly positive because you have positive correlation, unless x dot is 0. So you have exactly the property you were looking for. So this was introduced and proved by Sandholm for his version of potential population game. It was extended in work with Benaim and Hofbauer. Similar property were used by Monderer and Shapley in discrete time. But you see, this is a quite general property. It's not related to a game. It applies to any vector field as soon as you have this positive correlation. And we'll see that this property holds in the three dynamics that I will introduce now. So I introduce now the three continuous time dynamics. Okay, projected dynamics, mirror descent, dual averaging. So each case, we first define the dynamics, then we'll introduce a label function, and then we'll study the trajectories. The first one is called projected dynamics. Here I can work in a Hilbert space, and I assume X to be convex closed. So convergence will be weak convergence, okay? And if it's bounded, then there will be non-emptiness of the set any of phi and F. So it's analogous to the projected gradient descent of Levitin and Polyak, okay? Except that now I am now in continuous time, and I am not in the framework of the gradient of the convex function, but any ut in the dual. And it's defined as follows. So ut is what you observe, and what you define is x. And it's defined as follows. The derivative satisfies this. Ut minus x dot, okay, evaluated against y minus xt is negative for every y. Another way to write it is that x dot is the projection on the tangent space to x at xt of ut. Once you have this, you see immediately that Vt, which is, so you fix y and you look one half of the norm, this is a level function, because when you take the time derivative, you get x dot y minus xt, and ut is smaller than this is just the definition, the previous, okay? 15, okay, the definition of the dynamics, so it implies that you have this. So immediately you get that you have a level function. So you get that the regret will go to 0, the average regret will go to 0 with a speed 1/3, and this function will be decreasing on the trajectory. So this gives you the consequence first that if the vector field is dissipative and E is non-empty, the average converges weakly to a point in E. This is a consequence of the general property that we saw in property 2. Okay. And it works as follows. First, x dot is bounded. It's bounded because you see that this function here is decreasing. Okay, so it implies that xt remains in a ball near y, so it's bounded. It has weak accumulation point. The weak limit points are in E. This is the general property. This converges because we see that this function is decreasing. So we use the Oppial's lemma for the average. In addition, we see that we have positive correlation. If we take the derivative here, we get this because by Morrow's decomposition, this scalar product is 0, and we use the definition. Okay? So in particular, if I consider minus the gradient, I get that the function is decreasing on the trajectory. It converges to the minimum with the speed 1/t, but we know that when it's decreasing, the trajectory itself weakly converges to a point. Okay, it's the same using Oppial. Okay, so this is what we have for this dynamics. Now, second dynamics is mirror descent. So it's a continuous version of what was used by Nemirovsky, Yudin, Beck, and Tebul for gradient of convex function. And I add a function x, which will be the evaluation somehow. So I assume x strictly convex C2. X now is compact convex. I'm no longer in the Hilbert framework, so it's not Euclidean. The norm, it can be L1, what you want, okay? And the continuous time process called mirror descent satisfies the following: ut minus d of dt of the gradient of h of xt evaluated against y minus xt has to be 0 for every y. In particular, if you look at the case h of x is 1/2 of the norm, the gradient is x, and the derivative is x dot, you see ut minus x dot, so is exactly the previous case. Okay. Now, to get the value, we introduce the Bregman distance associated to h. So since h is convex, this is always positive. And when I take the time derivative of the Bregman distance, so y will be the reference point, xt is the trajectory. I take the derivative with respect to time. So above the first point, h of y, the derivative is 0. Here I get minus the gradient evaluated at x dot. And here, when I take the derivative with respect to the time, when I take the second part, it will be the gradient and then x dot, so it will vanish with the first time. So what remains is this. Okay, so derivative with respect to the time of the Bregman distance at y xt is this. And this is exactly minus this. Okay, this is the property here. So this shows that the Bregman distance evaluated at y against the trajectory is a level function. So immediately I get that the regret will go to 0 with the speed 1/t, and that the Bregman distance is decreasing on the trajectory if y belongs to a C of phi. Concerning the trajectory, I will use special function adapted to x that will produce a trajectory that remains in the interior. For example, the gradient will go to infinity when x goes to the boundary. So in this case, the definition here is an equality to 0, okay, because the point is interior, and I get this property. So x dot is the inverse of the Hessian against ut. So this corresponds to a Riemannian metric, and this similar dynamics were introduced by Bolt and Teboul, and later Alvarez, Bolt, and Brahim. It was studied by Mertikopoulos, Sandel. Okay. And in particular, positive correlation hold here, because if I evaluate my vector field against x dot, I get this, and H is convex. So I consider now the case of the convex function. I know that the accumulation points are in E because the function is decreasing on the trajectory. Now, to prove that you have convergence, we introduce two properties. H1 is that if a sequence converges to a point, then the Bregman distance goes to 0. Okay, for example, if H is L smooth, okay, then it's bounded by the norm. And the second is if the Bregman distance goes to 0, then you have convergence in the norm. For example, if H is strongly convex, then you have this inequality in the other sense. So the result of both is that in this framework, if the function is smooth and strongly convex, then you have strict convergence of E. And the point is that you start with the convergence, then you use the fact that you can compare to the Bregman distance, okay? And since the Bregman distance is decreasing, convergence on the subsequence implies convergence everywhere, and then you use the fact that you can compare the Bregman distance to the norm in the other direction to conclude to the convergence. The last dynamics is dual averaging, which is a continuous version of dual averaging introduced by Nesterov, and here I follow the paper by Kwon and Mertikopoulos. So here, the regularization function is little h, and it's simply bounded and strictly convex. I don't need regularity. And I need that the domain of little h is x, exactly. I denote by h star the Fenchel conjugate. Since the function is strictly convex, h star is differentiable. I introduce capital U to be the integral of the observation process up to t. And I define the dual averaging dynamics simply by xt to be the argmax of the evaluation capital Ux minus x. And since the domain of H is capital X, it's the same that the argmax on capital X. So another way to write the dynamics is simply to write that xt is the gradient of the Fenchel conjugate evaluated on the cumulative observation process. Okay, so this is a big difference between this dynamics and the two previous ones. The two previous ones were differential or incremental dynamics. Okay, it was the continuous part of dynamics of the form xm plus 1 minus xm equals something. And this one is integral or cumulative. Okay, it's just x at time t is a function of the whole path, but it's not expressed through a difference, through an increment. Okay? So the consequences are in the term of values. Here I introduce w of ty, which is basically the Fenchel function between the capital U and y. Y is my reference point. Capital U is the cumulative observation, and I define w here. Now, if I take the time derivative, I have a time derivative of the Fenchel conjugate. Here, the time derivative is 0. Here, the time derivative is little u. And this is exactly the definition of my procedure, okay? Because by taking the derivative here, I have the derivative of capital U, which is little u, and the gradient here of I star, which is xt. Okay, so this proves that W is a level function. So again, since I have a level function, I know that the average regret goes to 0 with speed 1 over t, and that this function evaluated to a point in SC of phi is decreasing on the trajectory. In fact, if h is smooth, so capital H is little h, the two functions that I introduced in the previous section and this one are the same. In the trajectory, the only property that we have here is that there is positive correlation. Okay. So this we'll discuss this later on. Okay, so a brief comment on the continuous time dynamic. There is existence of a level function, same speed of convergence of the no-rate quantity. So the fact that you are facing a general process or the gradient of a convex function doesn't allow you to get more precise results in general. Okay. Then in all cases, the average process will converge in SE when you are facing a dissipative vector field. And then you have weak convergence. So if when you work with projected dynamics. Okay. Or with mirror descent when you have a more specific function H. Now, 7, in the framework of game, if you look at the entropy function little x, which is defined on the simplex, so it's a specific case of a convex compact set, then what you get as dynamic is the replicator dynamics that was introduced by Taylor and Juncker and studied by Hofbauer and Sigmund. So the replicator dynamic is a specific case of dual averaging or mirror descent dynamics corresponding to capital X being the simplex and little h to being the entropy function. The corresponding Riemannian metric is the Shasharian metric. On the other hand, if you take for h 1/2 of the norm, then you have what this should be the norm square. Sorry, this what you have what was introduced in game as a local or direct projection dynamics, and it was studied by Lacker and Sandon. Recall also that the replicator dynamics that has good property in terms of progress is in fact the continuous version of what is called the multiplicative weight algorithm that was introduced in the discrete framework in the learning community by Littlestone and Vermouth. Okay. Just to end, there is a huge literature on continuous time dynamics having similar property, basically related to Bregman distance and Legendre function. So in convex optimization, Attouch and Teboul, Attouch-Boll-Teboul, and a lot of paper with Freddy Ostrander that I'm glad to quote here. And in game theory, so there is a recent survey of Mark Teboul that discuss all this. And in game theory, of Bauer Sodom, a lot of paper with Panayotis Mertikopoulos. Okay, now I'm going to the discrete time case, and it will be the same framework. I introduce the three dynamics and values and property. Okay. So it will be very, very similar, but there is a new parameter, which is the step size. So Hilbertian framework, the dynamic is basically the Polyak gradient method, except that UM is not minus the gradient, it's a general U. So either you consider that it's the argmin, and then there is a positive penalization, or the so this corresponds to the projection, or the argmax, where you have a penalization of the function. In both cases, corresponds to this. So it's a projection of xm plus eta m um, where eta m is a step size. And this is the variational characterization. And on the variational characterization, you see that if you let eta m goes to 0, you get the continuous version that I was describing in the previous part. for the value, you get this property. Okay, so and in particular, having eta m be equal to 1 over square root of n gives you a speed of convergence to 0 of 1 over square root of n. The proof is basically following the one in continuous time, except that there are error terms. Okay, you don't have exact, so there are error terms that you have to quantify, and this explains this term here. Okay. For the trajectory, you get the same monotonicity requirement, namely if x star is in SE of phi, then it converges if the step size are in L2. So this implies the property of convergence of the average if the step size are in L2 and the vector field is dissipative. For mirror descent, now you have to assume that capital H is not only strictly convex, but strongly convex for some norm. And the mirror descent is this. So here you see the usual discrete time algorithm. Okay. And DH, so the breakband distance replace the norm x minus xm squared. The variational formulation is this. You divide by eta m, you go, let eta m goes to 0, and you get the continuous time formulation. For the value, you have this. So this is not too difficult. You fix the length n, you fix a constant eta, and you have this property. Now, choosing eta to be 1 over square root of n gives you that Rn is a big O of square root of n. And then you use what is called the double trick, namely playing by block, and then you get this speed of convergence. For the trajectory, you simply have this, okay? And you cannot get the same property than convergence or weak convergence of the trajectory, okay, because of the error term. In dual averaging, similarly, the function is simply strongly convex for some norm. And the algorithm is again given by a maximum property. UM is the sum, and you take either the argmin of minus UM and the polarization of the argmax corresponding to the projection. And in both cases, xm plus 1 is given by an explicit formula. Okay, you don't have an incremental procedure here. So it's the gradient of the Fenchel conjugate evaluated at eta m um. Um is the sum, capital Um is the sum of the UN, and eta m is the step size. For the value, either you prove it directly or you can use a discrete approximation of the proof in continuous time. This was done by Kwon and Mertikopoulos, and you get this property in the regret. So this is basically the first term in the regret in continuous time, and the second is the error term. Okay. So by taking eta m to be 1 over square root of m, you get the convergence 1 over square root of m. So comment on the discrete time framework. The three algorithms achieve the same bound for the speed of convergence of the average regret, which is already optimal. Okay, so the fact that you are facing a bounded process or the gradient of a convex function doesn't make difference. Okay, and you have some result on the trajectory in the projected dynamics case, which are similar to the what you can in the continuous case if the step size are in L2. So it's very similar to what you get in the maximal monotone operators when you work on the discrete or continuous time. Okay, and there is no property of decreasing for potential case because you have this error term that destroy the monotonicity. Last point, I will mainly deal with the class of a convex gradient, but there is an addition, a condition, regularity condition on F. So we say that remember that F is beta smooth if you have this property or equivalent. The gradient of F is beta Lipschitz. And there will be a last part on the case of a vector field, which is beta Lipschitz. So again, I'm in the Hilbertian framework, projected dynamic. The assumption is F is beta smooth. And I use the same procedure. Okay, I take the projection of xm minus eta, the gradient. So it was plus eta u. Remember, u is minus the gradient. And here I take a constant step size. And here the analysis is standard. It was done a lot of time. You take eta to be 1 over beta. Remember that F is beta smooth. And then you have what the main point is the descent lemma that I didn't have in the previous case. You don't have descent lemma in general, neither in continuous nor in discrete time. This is very specific to first, a gradient of a convex function, 2, that it's beta smooth here. Okay. And from this, you deduce this property of the value, okay, where this is the Rn will be the regret, and you have convergence of the order of 1 over n. And similarly, you have this function which is decreasing, so you have convergence of the trajectory using Oppial's lemma. In the framework of mirror descent, you have still these dynamics, and lambda will be the step size will be constant. Here I follow a recent paper by Boschke, Bolt, and Teboul, where the hypothesis is the existence of a constant L such that, so H is a regularization function, F is a convex function, such that L dH minus dF is positive. So D, remember, dH is the Bregman distance associated to H. Okay? So this is a preorder, okay, saying that LH minus F is convex. It's a preorder on the function. It was introduced by Guyen in his thesis. And in particular, if H is strongly convex and F is smooth, then this assumption, this hypothesis holds. Then for the value, you have something that will play the role of a descent lemma, which is given by this inequality. Okay, this will play the role of the descent lemma. And then you get that if H is convex, the function is decreasing, this sum is bounded, and if H is convex, then you have this speed of convergence of 1 over n. Okay, for the two first, you don't need F convex. Okay, and a very recent result by Buin and Combet show that in fact you have a convergence which is a little O of 1 over n. And for the trajectory, assume that F is convex, so it implies that capital H is convex. Then this will be the what you need in Oppials, okay, the function that is decreasing. You use these hypotheses that are very similar to the one I was using in the first part in the mirror descent continuous case. Then you have convergence of the trajectory, not of the average, to a point. Finally, for dual averaging, so this is a paper by Lou, Freud, and Nesterov. They use the same hypothesis than in the paper by Bolt and Boschke, Bolt, and Teboul. And H is the regularization function, no hypothesis. Then you use the dual averaging algorithm, so it's simply the argmax here. And then you have convergence of one of the value to 0. But look, the difference is it's the average here of f of xn bar, okay, goes to 0. Okay, you don't have that f of xn is decreasing, okay, and no property on the trajectories. So just to summarize, in the three case, you have a speed of convergence of 1 over n. The value is rt over t or rn over n. Okay, so the value, the regret converges to 0 at the speed 1 over n, and the algorithm uses a constant step parameter. Okay. So it's constant step. In the previous case, it was 1 over square root of n. Okay. And in the projected dynamic, then f of xn is decreasing, but you don't need f to be smooth to get same result, because this is the result of Boschke, Bolt, Teboul, without assuming f Lipschitz if the function h is adapted to f. Okay. And you have a much simpler result, in fact, in the same framework, by using the dual averaging, but no property on the trajectories. Okay, so there is just one remark on mirror procs. These were all papers, but in fact, they use the same tools. Okay, it works with a vector field. It is assumed to be beta Lipschitz. And the dynamics, so rather having a strong hypothesis on the vector field or on the function, then you smooth the dynamics. The dynamics will be now, so in two steps. First, you go from xn to yn plus 1, but using mirror descent, okay? And then you go from xn to xn plus 1 by using mirror descent at the point un, which is the vector field used at yn plus 1, not at xn. Okay, so it's twice mirror descent, but you use the intermediate step to get a new function un. Okay, so it's not the mirror descent that should be un is phi of xn. So with this dynamic, you get this property in terms of value if h is alpha strongly convex and the constant step size satisfies this. So beta corresponds to the Lipschitzianity property of the vector field, alpha corresponds to the perturbation, lambda is the step size, and you get this. So this allows to control the regret at yn, okay, at the intermediate procedure. And for the trajectory, it was proved before by Korpelevich, assume phi dissipative, then Xn converge to a point in E in two frameworks, either it's Hilbert framework and projective dynamics, or the mirror descent with a regular function H, very similar to what Bolt and Boschke and Thibault were doing. Okay, concluding remarks. So for the three dynamics, we have the 3 points. In continuous time, the speed of convergence is 1/t. In discrete time, 1/square root of n, and it's not better in general if you know that the process is a gradient of a convex function. Okay, if you add some regularity hypothesis, you get in discrete time convergence at the speed of convergence 1/n. A similar phenomena appears in acceleration procedure. Okay, so if I look at the procedure introduced by Nesterov, if you look at the continuous time, you have a second order differential equation and speed of convergence, which is a big O of 1/t, with no further hypothesis on F. You just have that F is C1. Okay, this was proved by Su, Boyd, Candace, and then you have all this literature. Now, to obtain a similar property in discrete time, namely that the convergence 1/n², you have to assume F smooth. Okay, you cannot prove the speed of convergence without assuming that the gradient is Lipschitz. And the same property applies to convergence of the trajectory. Okay, the smooth hypothesis is not needed in continuous time, but is needed in discrete time. Look at the paper. Okay. So, and concerning the link between discrete and continuous time, there are no direct results saying that you can deduce property in discrete time from the property in continuous time. It's more analogy of the tools and ad hoc approximation, okay, or similar Lyapunov function, but there are no general results. And in fact, you see why, because there are so many counterexamples, and especially when you go to maximal monotone operators. Okay, when you have a Hilbert framework, then you get convergence of the trajectory, and this is basically due to Oppial's lemma. And in the mirror descent case, you try to mimic, when you don't have the Hilbertian framework, Oppial's lemma, but for this you need specific property on the Bregman distance associated to the function H. Okay. For mirror descent, so the advantage of mirror descent and dual averaging is that it works for general duality. Okay, so you can use the specific geometry of the problem and specific norm. Mirror descent is more precise because it gives you property on the trajectory. Dual averaging is much simpler because it's integral formulation. Okay, but in general you don't have property on the trajectories. And this will end my kind of summary. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Sylvain, for a very nice talk, for a tour de force on different nice methods in continuous in discrete time. So it is time for questions. Are there any questions? So then, yeah, let me ask the first question. So, I mean, why is the level function called level function?
I changed several times the terminology. Okay, I don't want to use it to use potential. I don't want to use Lyapunov. Okay, for me, by level, it means that this is going to be something that is decreasing. Okay, but it's adapted to both. It's adapted to the process that you observe, and it's adapted to the process that you generate. Okay, so by level function, for me, it was much more like, you know, you are covering something, okay, and you control the fact that you, okay. So this is why I call it level function. Okay, but the terminology is mine.
Okay. Then I have a second question related. So are there, okay, let us take the continuous case. Is there another continuous dynamic scheme which is covered by this general approach?
No, in fact, I start with no regret. Okay, so I want this no regret property to hold. This was basically the way for me to link the general observation on learning process to the other. Obviously, there are plenty of dynamics. For example, in-game fictitious play or best reply, or in optimization, Frank Wolf or what Antipin and Jerome Bolt were using, okay, that have very nice property, but you cannot express them to the regret, and you cannot get property of the regret. I mean, it doesn't match, okay? So it doesn't cover at all nice continuous time dynamics that you have either in optimization or even with vector field. But the other, they don't have counterpart for general observation process. Okay, this was at the beginning, I was quite surprised to see that you have same speed of convergence and same result. You know, a general process means that you see UT, it's anything in the dual. Okay, it's anything in the dual. Okay, and you try to not to predict, but to do a posteriori as well as any constant stuff. Okay. So if you look at the trajectory that you generate, you could put a grid corresponding to all the trajectory that will correspond to constant behavior of you, okay? And you do better than any of them, okay? So what will be you can discretize your compact set, take any fine discretization, you will be better than any of this, okay? So this is the basic point, okay? And so this is a no regret property. And other dynamics like Frank Volt for this, they don't say anything about this property. So this is why I was not working at them.
So I had indeed in mind the dynamics proposed by, you mentioned Antipin and then later Jerome,
yes.
Which have a different form, which the derivative is equal with projection.
Yes.
But okay, so they cannot be covered, let's say, by
no, they have much nice, they are very good property because they are interior dynamics, they have other property. I spoke once the connection, they are very good connection with games, okay, but no connection with online learning.
Okay.
So you cannot use them in online learning, and in particular, you know, I didn't speak about this, but there are a lot of open problems in online learning where you don't know, for example, the vector UN, but you just know the evaluation. So it's like in a game, you don't know the strategy of the opponent, but you just know your payoff. Okay, so if you have no regret, you can work with such restriction. But if you use, for example, the dynamic of Jerome, you cannot do anything there. Okay, it's formulated in with other tools somehow.
So I guess that this also answers one question we have in chat. So if this online learning idea work well in practice, I mean. Of course, I mean, we just noticed the importance of this technique for online learning and what could be a possible application. Or do you want to say more about this? So can you read the chat?
Yes. Okay. So I didn't discuss. This was very general in terms of general tools. Okay. And if you look, well, the proof, I gave more or less the complete proof in the continuous time because they are extremely short. Okay, when you go to discrete time, they are not so long, and basically the structure is the same. Okay, but you have to take care of the error term, so they are much longer. But basically, the idea you try to mimic. Okay, but you cannot mimic exactly because you have error term that appear here and there and so on. Now, to be precise and to see the advantage of this or that dynamics, you have to look not only at the speed of convergence, but at the precise constant. And here, you see the advantage of working with mirror descent of dual averaging. And you have to go to all this paper in online learning where they use they have explicit bounds on the constants, okay? And for example, they can use the fact that the data are sparse, okay, or a lot of property. Okay? Oh, I didn't put something also, basically adding another function, and all what I did here in discrete time was the Euler scheme, okay? So, but if you, everything goes for the backward-forward algorithm, okay? It's not difficult. I mean, the prox part will go. I mean, the difficulty here in speed of convergence is the Euler part, okay? And if you add a backward part, it will work the same property. But in game theory, it doesn't make sense. it doesn't make sense. Why? Because you cannot predict when you play the behavior of your opponent. It simply doesn't make sense, okay? Because all the players are playing at the same time, so you cannot say, well, I'm looking at the behavior of the gradient of my payoff function at the point that all players are going to choose. It doesn't match. It doesn't match, okay? So it can be used to prove or to get regularity of a solution of the continuous trajectory. So it's general in ODE, okay? If you want to, you can use procs to get, this is exactly what Bresis does with maximal monotone operator, okay? You prove property of the continuous trajectory by using procs, okay? But here, it's not the case. It's using procs in practice. It doesn't make sense in the framework of games.
Okay, so we have a question by Russell Luke from Mallorca. So Russell.
Mallorca.
I'm in northeastern Mallorca, just south of the North Sea. It's, at the risk of asking a really stupid question, I've always kind of wanted to see if it'd be possible to apply progressive hedging to an online learning.
Oh,
could you analyze this in your framework?
This was one of the first paper by Tom Cover. Okay, Tom Cover was a statistician in Stanford, and if you look at this, okay, I will give you here. So, he wrote a paper in mathematical finance. Okay, Tom Cover, you see, universal portfolios. Okay, math finance one.
Okay, thanks.
And here it was a very simple example where you have a portfolio and you have several places where you can put your money. And so you have finitely many choices. A strategy will be a point in the simplex saying XT is, so XTK is the proportion of your money that you put in bank or in auction K at time T. Okay. And what is no regret means that on the average, you will do better with your portfolio than any of the banks. Okay, you will get a better payoff on the average than any of the K banks. Okay, so basically you convexify. Okay, and this is the first explicit example, and it was very good. Okay,
thanks.
Cover is also the author of a very nice book on entropy, and very, very, very famous statistician in Stanford.
Thank you, Russell. Are there other questions? So I have another question, Sylvain. So one of the important properties you had in your analysis was dissipativity, so which is like minus, which is the same minus the operator is monotone. Yeah?
Yes, yes.
And this is very much related to convexity, gradient,
yes.
monotone, and so on. Sure. So what about a non-convex setting?
Okay. I think, I have the feeling that if you don't have one of these two hypotheses, I have no idea. So one of the two hypotheses is either it's monotonic, okay? But monotonic, you find this everywhere in obviously a maximal monotone operator, but you find this also in the proof of equilibria in mean field games. You find it in, if you think of this variational inequality, okay, and mean T inequality, okay, then you know that if it's continuous and monotone, then it's equivalent. But so you have a proof of a fixed point, okay? But the tool that you use is the min-max theorem. So it's unbanner, so it's elementary, meaning that if you have a monotone operator, okay, then for example, it's defined on algebraic, okay, then the solution will be in the field, which is not true for Nash equilibria in general. Okay, so it's in terms of complexity, it's much simpler. Okay, and there are algorithms finding the fixed point for monotone operator. It will not be true in general. We know that there are no algorithms going to fixed point. Okay, so if there is no monotonicity, I don't believe. Okay, and the other property is the gradient. Okay, and I think this is gradient without convexity. And I think this is all the program of Jerome and Lewis and all these people, with Loyarevich inequality and Okay, so you have these two branch, okay, and one is using the fact that I mean somehow behind monotonicity it's elementary in terms of separation. Okay, it's no fixed point, and on the other hand, Lojasevic, it's basically algebraic. Okay, and if you don't have one of these two, I think there is very little hope to get general results. Okay? And especially in games, I think that in this case, rather when you have plenty of very nice dynamics, but like rather than looking at rest point of the dynamics, I'm looking at attractors, meaning sets that as a set have a lot of stability, but it's not a collection of rest points. Okay, so the dynamic will be attracted by this set, but the set itself is not a collection of rest points. Okay, and this doesn't make sense in optimization, but in game theory or in general vector field, I think this is the natural answer if you don't have either monotonicity or potential case. Okay.
Thank you. So we have a comment by Jerome, I guess.
No, but it was a very good talk.
Okay. Sorry. So, okay, okay. This was my impression that you.
Yeah, but yeah, maybe something on the last remark of Sylvain. It is true that the asymptotic behavior for games is very mysterious, because precisely you can have these attractors which are not collection of rest points, and studying precisely the behavior near this set seems to be a very nice challenge. Yes.
Thank you. So, thank you very much. So if there are no further questions, I propose to stop here. So thanks, Sylvain, again for a very nice talk. For
Thank you, Radu.
very interesting ideas, so very impressive results. Yeah, very inspiring for our young colleagues. So I want to wish you just to mention first that we will post a video and the slides on our website. I want to announce that the next speaker is Henry Volkovich next Monday, and to wish you a nice week. Happy Easter, all the best, and see you next Monday. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.